Okay, moving right along. DK Lee, has introduced our Kelli Questrom Associate Professor of Management, Associate Professor Information Systems, and we're proud to have DK Lee as a Research Fellow with the Digital Business Institute leading the way in generative AI. And DK.
All right, thank you. All right, well, I'm glad to be here. Digital Business Institute, events are always fun. Thank you for organizing. I would like to present this generative AI, human creativity, and art. You can find the paper, tiny.cc/genart. That's a full paper. This is forthcoming in PNAS Nexus in March. So this is joint work with my student and collaborator, co-author, Eric Zhou. And all the arts here are generated with the Midjourney, DALL-E, and Stable Diffusion ourselves. All right, so a lot of these are old news, but let me just go through these quickly. So AI-generated artwork actually won the state art competition against the humans, right? Like that's more than a year ago. It was Colorado State Art Fair, and shortly after that, photography contest was actually won with the same technology. And the artist actually said, I'm not going to get the prize because this is generated by AI. A few months ago in Psychological Science, they published a paper saying that these generated faces look more human to the subjects than actual human faces. And they go into reasons. And let me just give you a brief history of text-to-image models. I'm sure, who here has used this, any of these? Yeah, so like a lot of us already use this. This all began when GAN, Generative Adversarial Net, and these were 2017 and 16 were the first of the kind. Not a lot of people used it, only just a bunch of engineers and researchers tinkering with it. Then DALL-E 1 came 2021 with not a lot of users, but Midjourney was when it first began in 2022, March. About 15 million users. DALL-E 2 is like, I think the monthly daily active is like 2 million with the DALL-E 3 integrated into ChatGPT. And Stable Diffusion leading sort of the way with the open source movement, right? Stable Diffusion, by the way, is very powerful but harder to use. It's akin to like Android, and DALL-E, Midjourney, super easy to use, but you don't have much control, right? And this is very related to computational creativity literature. Early works sought to basically figure out and understand, can algorithms be creative? If you're very interested in this, there is a very nice conference called ICCC, International Conference on Computational Creativity. They have been doing this for a long time. And lots of work here has asked questions, how can computer-generated artifacts be evaluated as creative? Can they do it? How can we automate this? Or does it really mean creative, right? So, and in this literature, widely used criteria for creativity has two different parts. One is novelty, how different an artifact is from a known artifact in its class. It could be ad creatives or writing, piece of writing, or music, or art pieces. Value, this is the harder one. It's context dependent. Basically, it measures some form of utility, performance, attractiveness of an artifact, right? So that's very contextual. And our research question were the following. How does adoption of generative AI affect humans' creative productivity, right? I think there are a lot of studies now, it increases productivity. We knew that that's not so interesting. It's obvious. But the second question is the more fundamental question. Is generative AI enabling humans to produce more creative content? And we have an answer for that. And more interestingly, we explore for whom and when is Gen AI effective. So empirical setting, we got data from our sharing platform, about 5 million posts with performance metrics like favorites, views, and all of that. 50,000 unique users in the website with about 10% of them adapting these tools like Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, and DALL-E. All right, so here is just like some example of like adoption period. This was 2022, March, Midjourney released, and then DALL-E 2. and then Stable Diffusion. So a lot of them adapted after that, right? Okay, so our outcome variables are quite simple. Productivity, we operationalize it as log of monthly number of arts or posts, right, the artist produced. Value is we have views as well as favorites, but then favorites per view is the actual, human decision to like it after they have seen it, right? So we decide to go with that. Novelty, we operationalize it using some machine learning methods, but it's a pairwise distance for each artifact here as in the images, compared to all prior artifacts, all the arts that came before. And we use some econometrics. I'm not going into details, but basically it boils down to finding adapters, people who have adapted versus non-adapters and comparing them over time. It's Callaway-Santana method, diff and diff over, yeah. All right, so how can artists be creative, right? Using some art theory, we came up with two ways, right? One is humans can express creativity via two main ways. One is content. What is actually in the photo or art, right? What's going on in the photos or art piece. The second is visual, actual pixel-level stylistic visuals, right? So content concerns the focal object and relationship depicted in the artifact. And then visuals consider the stylistic and thematic element of an artifact at the pixel level. So here's a 2x2, So the first one is same content and visuals. Both are like cats, right? Looks like the visuals look like they could come out from same sort of animation. This one is same content, both cats, but then the one on the left is more like a steampunk style, pixel level. Visualistically, it's quite different from the one on the right, cat. This one is a cat versus woman, but they look like they're similar sort of visual theme, right? The last one, everything is different. Right? So these are two different 2x2. So how do we operationalize this? Not going into much details, but we take advantage of all these multimodal LLMs that big companies have spent millions of dollars to train. Right? So for content, we use Salesforce, Blip2. Basically, they use like 129 million images. And what it does, it's a model that basically takes an image and then creates a caption. So it has seen more images than any humans ever will. And a lot of that data has human-generated captions. So it's doing that pretty much uniformly across the data set. Then we use another model to turn this chunk of text, which is a description of what's going on in the photo or picture or artwork, into vector representation. Then we can do cosine distance and then get the similarity or distances. Same thing for visuals. We take one from Meta. Again, it learns a bunch of statistical regularities of visual elements at the pixel level from like 142 million images. And then it creates an image embedding. Again, vector representation of it. And then what we can do is get distance. So here's just some example. This one is a cat, description of a cat. It just basically gives a closer distance to this thing than some mushroom cloud. Right? Another example, waterfall, closer to this one than a cat. This is what's content, right? And here's a visual comparison. These two photos are way more visually similar than, say, a mushroom and this photo, right? It keeps going down, okay? All right, some data exploration of what's going on in the data set. So this was an example of a user. This person created his or her account in 2020 June and started just posting these, I don't know, the Pokemon, Digimon kind of style characters. Then took a huge hiatus. And then September 22 came and announced new and improved, AKA this person adapted. And then started producing diverse of different artwork in that platform. You can see, if you've used it, like half the people in the room used it, and you can sort of see that these are created by like text-to-image models, right? Everybody creates these like space-looking things, right? Steampunk is one of the first things that people tend to create, right? This is what happens. And then this person started producing way more content. So in our data set, we just told it, what is the most novel content? And we just randomly selected 2. The first one is fractal. This is like basically comparing all the artwork that came before, right, in the platform. These are the most novel pieces of artwork, content-wise. What's in the photo or artwork? Second one is transmagnetic excitation field. Second is least novel content. We asked that, we just sample 2. You can sort of see mountain. People have drawn mountains numerous number of times, and some portraits, right? These are least novel. The most novel visual-wise, here are some examples. You can see like opal dragon scales, sea within a sea, and things like that, right? And these are least novel visually. So some paintings that you would see in like Metropolitan Museum of Art kind of thing. So these came up. And here are most valuable versus least valuable. I mean, there are like a lot of 0 favorites per views, but this one, Mice and Coco, 61% of the time it was favored, conditional on it being viewed. And then someone actually put a shutter for an average adopter. This amounts to 7 additional posts during the month of adoption, 15, and then half of the 7, so 3 to 4 right after, and it continues about, stables off to 25% more, okay? All right, so over time, value captured by these adopters also increase consistently. Overall, 1% increase in likelihood of receiving favorites per view. That doesn't seem like it's much, but considering that average favorites per view is gathering 2%, right? That's 50% increase. I mean, yeah, so that's 50% increase in value capture, right? Also, views per post increase and favorites per post also increase. Now we're going into the creativity part. What's happening to novelty? Okay, the next one I think I'll show average content novelty. Let's just do this at the, who thinks the average content novelty goes down or up? Let's say it goes up. Few people. Average content novelty goes down. Okay, more people. Any reasons? What do you think? Learn? Okay. Yeah, well, the average content novelty goes down. So people are producing same content like, cat, steampunk, right? However, we also have a result for peak maximum content novelty. That goes up, actually. Meaning, there is a creative expansion of creative conceptual space at the aggregate level, right? So what's happening is that among the adopters, what they're producing content-wise, it's actually expanding. Although a lot of them create the same thing. So there are a lot of inefficiencies, but the boundary of creative space is expanding as a result of adapting. Why? Because obviously people, now all of these, drawing is automated. They can express themselves, and it's faster iteration, and so it's expanding. Now, what about average visual novelty? Who says increases? All right, half the people. Who says decreases? All right, it's half and half. Oh, yes.
Well, it seems like a lot of it's going to be iterating on like one theme until you get what you want, right? So if you look at everything that people create, like it will go down, but
yeah. So
they're all experimenting right around a similar topic.
Indeed, there is a very it goes down consistently. So. There are many reasons for this. It could be that they are producing the same thing. They're just not good at prompting. Big reason also is that these models are trained, right, to produce consistent sort of output given a prompt. So there is a decrease, there is a trade-off, of diversity and sort of like consistency, right? But interestingly, the peak one also goes down. I don't have the graph here. Both average and peak visual novelty goes down, right? So let me just skip these. It's saying the same thing. But the interesting part here is who's actually winning, or actually, when does it work is a bigger question, right? All of these things are sort of guessable. The first part is guessable, but generative AI decreases both average content and visual novelty in aggregate. What's happening at the individual level? For whom and what type of novelty bring value? To study this, this is correlational, but we bucketed the adopters based on bottom, low, upper, and best quartiles of average pre-treatment, before they adopted, pre-treatment content and visual novelty. You can think of content novelty as their ability to ideate. Do they have a good ideas to put it in the photo or art? And their pre-treatment visual novelty as their artistic skills of mastery of visualizing at the pixel level. They're a good visualizer or animator, whatever, right? So we can see which novelty sort of is highly correlated to value capture, in this case, favorites per view. And here's the result. This is a result for pre-treatment content novelty. So basically, these buckets represent their ideation ability, so to speak, right? What's going to be in the photo. And the Y variable here is the estimated effect on value, favorites per view. And you can see, let's just look at this part, mean content novelty. So what this means is that for everyone, right, who has a good novel content ideation, it translates a lot to value, right? So almost all group benefit from good content novelty, good content, novel content. However, visual tells a different story. Except for the very bottom, people who are not good at ideating, all of the lower, upper, and best, if they become novel at visual sense, they get penalized. It doesn't translate to value, okay? Same result for visual novelty. Again, you can look at it as, well, let's see the bottom, lower, upper, and best quartiles of their pre-adoption ability to visualize things well, right? And again, almost all group benefit from good content novelty, but previously best reap the most benefit here, right? Again, for visual novelty, kind of gets not a lot of effect here. And then people who are actually very good at visualization and capture a lot of value, if they go even beyond, they get penalized. So it's like an upside down U. You're good until a certain level, and if you're too novel, people start hating on it, or there's a diminishing return. It's telling that story. So to visualize this in one graph, we actually visualized Shapley value. Basically, it's a sort of predictive attribution. We have two variables. One is visual novelty in blue, content novelty in green, and then Y variable is the impact on effect size, the value capture. You can see as time goes, content novelty is translating to value, right? So in the land of Midjourney, content is king. Yeah, this is because the ability to visualize has gotten easier, and so now what matters is the ability to filter, right? And their ideation ability. In fact, this is another result. We also investigated who captures the value. Among the adopters, the favorites per view captured actually gets less concentrated. So as people adopt, low and mid, they probably capture more than say if they didn't adopt. And so the concentration, so Gen AI tool in this case is promoting more equal value capture. So we also have that. Now to bring it to marketing, here's one thing I wanted to say. There are a lot of papers. I'm sure you've seen a lot of these papers. Many recent studies on Gen AI claim low to mid-skilled workers benefit disproportionately and more so than, say, high-skilled workers. All of these papers actually show that in different settings, like writing, coding, marketing, copywriting, and so on and so forth, right? The problem here is that we need to rethink the right metric, and that could tell a different story, right? And our paper actually show that it depends on what kind of different skills that are complementary to generative AI actually determines who captures the value, right? So it can't be just, you can't just simply divide workers to low to mid to high. You actually have to tell a different story. You have to figure out right metrics, right? And complementary with generative AI is more nuanced than broad skill or experience categorization. We also actually had this conversation literally a year ago. You can actually see this. You can go to tiny.cc/ads and Gen AI. This was a webinar literally exactly a year ago where we talked about, this was titled, Is Creativity in Advertising Dead in the Age of AI? This, we had Jeff Goodby, the Got Milk commercial creative master, right? And then Kelli from president of the Ad Club. And we discussed on how Gen AI will impact advertising and creative industry. Okay, and for the last 2-3 years, I've been talking with lots of different people. So laymen seem to think, now the barrier is low, we will prevail, is the sentiment, right? Now we can create these tools, whether like automating music or art, we're gonna prevail. Now, when I talk to people like Dean of Juilliard or artists or content creator, they seem to have the other story. Well, now they think we will accelerate even faster. The divide will be even stronger, right? So we'll see how that's happening. What's going to happen with that? In fact, the paper that I just showed says it depends on complementarity to Gen AI capabilities, and we have 2 additional paper work in progress trying to exactly figure out what actually matters and who prevails with the Gen AI and what actual complementary skills you need to do well with Gen AI. But bottom line, filtering taste will have a big role, and it'll depend on multiple factors, so coming soon. Yeah. So takeaway, productivity increases, value captured increases. What value captures is more, less concentrated. It promotes some equality, at least in this data set. I don't know what happens in other data set. Average content novelty decreases, but over time it is still expanding. People are expanding and faster. They're trying more and more. So although there are a lot of people producing the same thing. Visual novelty continually decreases. This gives another sort of concern. For example, I have another paper with Professor Gord Birch where we talk about what happens to Stack Overflow as a result of ChatGPT, right? So now, if you think about that, these experts are not really incentivized. If they are afraid that ChatGPT will gobble their good answers and replace them, what would incentivize them? This is happening a lot, right? All the artists and writers changing, or they're suing OpenAI, all of that. But down the future, if there is an equilibrium where these top performers, experts, are not providing their knowledge to the internet for open, training, what will happen? That's a concern, right? All right, so that's it for today. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, DK. I think we have time for 2 questions. Stephen.
I'm one of the few people alive who actually gets paid to draw cartoons.
Oh, cool.
But listening to you, I heard taste, talent, ideas, and experience were variables. Am I misinterpreting you, or is that what you're saying, that taste and talent still win, or ideas multiplied by a machine?
Yeah.
How should I think about the role of talent and taste?
Yeah, so I think that's still, we're trying to investigate what's happening, who's going to win. But I think intuitively, I think it's the ability, well, the LLM's quite limited. It only learned from what's in the internet, and mostly from text, and the image and video is coming out, but it's learned from about like what the estimate varies, but like 4 trillion tokens to like 15 trillion tokens. And it doesn't, it's very small part of like what we experience. We sense stuff, we see, there is a contextual knowledge that's not digitized, right? All of these things are lacking. This is why it's still, LLMs are not useful for a lot of different things. It doesn't even have all the reasoning abilities, right? It lacks in all kinds of different reasoning abilities. So what I'm saying here is, like, long story short, I think we still are better at figuring out what would be what would work well, right? So we are here still to filter what might be good, right? In that sense, we still have the upper hand, unless when AGI or strong AI comes in, all bets are off. But
That's a big if.
yeah, well, no,
Last question. Rick?
Yeah, do you have similar data on the impact of AI on writing, both in speed and quality, depending on the domain that's being written about?
Oh, so there are already lots of papers that do this. So you can, some of these, actually this one is Science Advances looking at writing. And then Della Quina, this is done by a bunch of Harvard, HBS, and I think BCG folks. Yeah, so you can look at those.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Fantastic.